much for joining me. My name is Kate Thompson, and this is the latest installment of A Lesson in Real Estate. As I stated on last week's episode, we are going to be focusing on things this month as they relate to National Homeownership Month. And I told you that I would share some historical things with you as well as some current events and changes that are coming up that you need to know about in order to help you better prepare to purchase a home. And later in the month, we'll do some things where we're helping sellers to really understand and navigate the sales process so they can get the best deal possible as well. So today what we're going to focus on is a relatively new development in the world of real estate. It does affect every single person. It affects the homeowner or the seller. It definitely is going to affect the buyer. In fact, the buyer is who's going to have the most impact from this. And it's also going to affect real estate professionals and people who are working in the real estate industry as well. And so today we're going to discuss that. And it's actually revolving around agent commissions. So for those of you who don't know, if you have not been following the real estate news in the last couple of years, actually, you will see that there's a little bit of a small story that eventually grew, kind of snowballed, and has become a really big thing and is really shaking up the real estate industry. And that is a class action lawsuit. There's actually several, but we're going to discuss just one today because it's already been decided. The other ones are still up in the air. But this one particular lawsuit is called Sitzer versus Burnett. Took place in the state of Missouri, so Kansas City, Missouri. And the lawsuit is a class action lawsuit, and it's revolving around realtor commissions. And so the National Association of Realtors, for those of you who don't know, the National Association of Realtors is the trade organization, for-profit trade organization that that lots of real estate agents belong to. It's a trade organization that they belong to that is an advocate in many different ways for the real estate agent, even though NAR, to their credit, they do try to do some things to help communities. A lot of times I personally think things that they do are kind of misguided, but they do try. And so that is what makes a realtor. There are real estate agents in our communities as well who get the exact same education as the National Association of Realtor members. They also have to adhere to the exact same laws as the National Association of Realtor members. There are also state ethics and things like that they have to adhere to, but they choose not to pay a membership to the National Association of Realtors. That is really the only difference between a real estate agent and a realtor. The realtor just chooses to pay to be a part of the club, and they have a specific set of ethics that they promise to follow and adhere to, that the real estate agent doesn't necessarily have to promise to do. In this lawsuit, Sitzer versus Burnett, it was argued that the sellers that were represented in this case were not given a fair shot in negotiating commissions. The way our commission structure has been set up for the last, I would say, 30 years or so, is that usually when a realtor works with a seller, a person who wants to sell their home, the realtor is working out a commission. It could be a flat fee, it could be a percentage of the purchase price, or what have you. And what they're doing is they're also working that fee out, so that they are able to compensate a buyer's agent if a buyer brings the agent a qualified buyer, so that the buyer can, purchase the home that they have listed for sale. Usually with an agent, a listing agent, if they're on average for the last 30 or so years for sure, because I'm just using that time frame because this is data that I know you can go out and find. The average is between 5 and 6% of the purchase price is what the listing agent is negotiating with the seller, and that's been historically so for the last, like I said, 30, 35 years or so. So I'm just going to put that into perspective for you. We're just going to use a really low number. So for $100,000, a house that's going to sell for $100,000, if the listing agent has negotiated a sales commission of 6%, then that real estate agent is going to make $6,000 from the sale of that property, if it sells for $100,000. Now, as a part of that, if another agent, another realtor or real estate agent even, has brought a buyer to the transaction that's going to purchase this property for the $100,000, then that listing agent agrees to co-op or cooperate with the buyer's agent and pay them a portion of that commission that they negotiated with their seller. Now, usually, in more cases than not, the listing agent is going to pay the buyer agent the exact same amount that they, or half, I should say, of the commission amount that they negotiated. So if they're going to be charging their seller 6%, they're going to pay the buyer agent who brings the buyer 3%. So in the case of this $100,000 home that I just brought up, the listing agent is going to make that 6%, which is $6,000. And when the buyer agent brings a buyer, the listing agent is going to pay that buyer's agent $3,000 of the 6. So that's actually how that works. When there have been sellers who have felt like that wasn't explained to them properly. There have been sellers who said that wasn't explained to them at all. And they disagree with the notion that they should have to take a portion of what they're earning from the sale of their home to pay an agent who is actually advocating against them. Because if you think about it, the buyer's agent is advocating against the seller. The buyer's agent's job is to make sure that the buyer gets the best possible deal, and that they're getting as much as they can get throughout the real estate transaction, as that is also the listing agent's job for the seller. So there are certain instances, things that have happened, which you can go out there and read about, that have come up as a result of this payment arrangement. And it has caused some unrest amongst people who have sold properties in the past, who felt like they weren't given all the information that they needed to get in order to make a sound decision about how much to pay an agent. They maybe didn't ask enough questions about what that agent was going to bring to the table in terms of value. It could be any number of things, but they joined the lawsuit. And in essence, the National Association of Realtors lost. Now, some agents feel like the representation was lacking. Some people don't necessarily feel that way. I am a person who believes that you should follow the evidence, and whatever conclusions you can derive from that is what, if there's liability, then the person should, or company or organization or whatever, should be held liable for that. I am also a person who believes in fairness and who knows and understands that every situation in every household is different. And so it's important for us as real estate professionals and practitioners to be able to ask the right questions to figure out what the best need for our client is. And I just don't believe that that has been the case with every real estate agent and every transaction across the board, because if it had been, these lawsuits would not have come about. So NAR, the National Association of Realtors, was not the only entity that was named in these lawsuits as a defendant. We have some other really well-known big real estate firms that were named as well, which I'm not going to say the names of those organizations, but I do want to say this. I don't feel like this is a reflection, these changes that are about to come about. They are a result of the punishment that the National Association of Realtors has to endure because they were not the victors in the lawsuit. But I don't want people to have the impression that real estate agents are, and realtors even, that we have been actively doing things to make uneven the playing field for the home buyer or the home seller. With every real estate professional that I know intimately, and those many of them of whom I've worked with, even if I don't know them intimately, every one of them was advocating for the best interest of their client. And I believe that real estate professionals should be compensated for the work that they do. There's so much more involved when you're a real estate agent who's a buyer's agent than just opening doors and showing homes. They do so many other things. They negotiate on your behalf. They advocate on your behalf. They help you to find the right resources you need to make sure you're getting safe and a safe and sound home. They advocate for you in terms of legalities where that's appropriate. They are the ear that you bend when you're frustrated in the transaction process, and so many other things. And so it's important for us to recognize that buyer agents do a lot. They do a lot more than just open doors, and they should be compensated accordingly. Now, that's where you come in as the buyer. Because of these lawsuits that I just mentioned, starting August the 17th, 2024, so just in a couple of months, we are going to have a major shakeup in the real estate industry. Buyer agents will no longer be able to show properties to people looking to buy homes without a signed buyer's representation agreement. Doesn't matter which company you call, doesn't matter what size house or the amount, any of that, that's all irrelevant. The rule is a legal rule that has been implemented as a result of these lawsuits. So that's the first thing that I want to tell you, guys. That's how it's going to impact you as the buyer. Every single agent from now on is going to ask you to sign a buyer's representation agreement. Now, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily stuck with that agent forever. If you don't like the agent, and you don't have to sign for a long period of time. All of that's negotiable. You can just sign for a few days, long enough to gain access to the property and get to know the agent in person to see if this is someone you really want to work with. Usually that's the case, though. Most people who are buyer's agent will work with the agent that's been the most communicative with them. And it's also my belief that if you have been working with someone, you've called them 4 or 5 times, 3 or 4 times, twice even, and asked them for information on a property, or if they've shown you a property, then that person is really developing the mindset that they are going to be your agent. And you should be also going along in that vein as well. It is unfair to ask an agent to do all of those things and then you go off and find another agent to work with when you've put the first agent through so much. Like I said, everyone deserves to be treated fairly and in a professional manner. And so if you run across someone that's not treating you that way, then it is, your right to move to another agent. But if the agent that you found has been communicating with you, has been effectively communicating with you, has been providing you all the information that you need in order to make your informed decisions, then there should be no reason why you should not feel comfortable signing a buyer's representation agreement with that person. The other thing that real estate agents are going to have to do up front is they're going to have to start discussing their fees with the buyers up front. So, and having to explain to you as the buyer that they're going to do everything that they can to negotiate their commissions with the seller or the seller's agent. Well, it's really the seller, because the listing agents are not going to be able to necessarily negotiate that for your buyer's agent in the future. So you need to be able and prepared to pay your client, your buyer agent, in the event that the buyer agent is not able to get compensation from the other side. Also, it is very, very important that buyers understand the rights that they have in terms of the state that they're buying in. A lot of states have what they call caveat emptor. There are caveat emptor states, which means let the buyer beware. So you want to be sure that you're reading all the documentation that's presented before you by your representative, your real estate professional, and make sure you understand those things before you sign them. And it is also okay to negotiate. Like I said, we want you to get the best possible deal, a deal that's going to fit your budget. But we also want to make sure that as professionals, we're staying within the confines of the law, and that we're keeping you within the confines of the law as well. So that is the big bombshell that you guys can look forward to. That's what's going to be happening, what's dropping on, like I said, August 17th, 2024. No agent is going to be able to show you a property if they're a realtor without an express buyer's representation agreement. And express just means that you've signed it, that they have your signature. They don't have to meet you in person to do this. You can sign a buyer's representation agreement electronically. Like I said, it is up to you to negotiate the terms of that contract. So make sure that you're doing that. If you want the option to try out a few agents, like I said, you can have a short-term agreement with someone that gives you the opportunity to shop around and find the person that's going to best suit your needs and the price that's going to best suit your budget, because the chances are pretty great that you are going to have to make arrangements to pay your agent who's representing you as the buyer some form of compensation. The other thing that I would tell you to do is be on the lookout for additional changes. There are some appeals that I'm very sure are going to happen as a result of this one lawsuit. And like I said, we have several other lawsuits in the works that need to be ironed out. Those lawsuits are going to help determine further, what, if any, changes are going to come as a result of their verdicts to our industry and how that trickles down to you. So just be prepared. And like I said, here for National Homeownership Month, we want to make sure that we're telling you things that you can use from a historical perspective, and then we're also telling you things that are happening right now, so that when you do take the plunge and get out there and start looking for a home, you're very, very clear about what to expect. The other thing that you should be getting from your real estate professional in the event that you have selected someone to show you a property and you've decided that you want to move forward with that person is what their duties are to you. Like I said, if you don't have a buyer's rep agreement, then you are actually not the client of the agent. You are just the customer, at which point they only owe you honesty and fair dealing. If you have a signed buyer representation agreement, then that agent then has a fiduciary duty, a legal duty to do everything that you ask them to do that is within the confines of the law. They are also obligated to protect your confidentiality. They are obligated to do other things that are necessary for you to have a smooth and great transaction. And if they're not able to do that, then like I said before, there are avenues and steps that you can take to end the relationship with that particular agent and move on to another agent. I also want to let you know that the National Association of Realtors does have a lot of great information out on their website for consumers who want to learn more about this lawsuit and learn more about the changes that are coming down the pipe. The other thing that I want to tell you guys is that most people don't think about, but I think is very important that I say this, is that just the way you go into an agreement with an agent to have them represent you as either a buyer or a seller. Those are binding contracts. They are binding agreements. So be careful that if you want to cease doing business with the person that you have the arrangement with, that you are able to obtain a release of liability or release from the contract. You can't just go from one agent to another, especially if you have a signed representation agreement, because if you go out there and do something like purchase a home that the previous agent showed you, then it is possible that you may owe compensation to two agents. So the one that you decided to move over to and the one that you decided to leave. This is especially the case if, like I said, you wind up purchasing a home with another agent that a previous agent showed you. Many states and many companies, real estate companies, have within their paperwork a form that's called working with the real estate agent or working with the real estate broker. I strongly urge that you guys ask the agent that you're working with for that documentation because that outlines specifically what the agent is supposed to do, and it also outlines what you're supposed to do in order to protect your investment and to be sure that you are giving the real estate professional all the tools they need to put their best foot forward for you in terms of negotiating the transaction. They cannot do that if they don't have a full understanding of what it is you're trying to do, and also if they don't have a full understanding of your situation. So you want to make sure that you are communicating with them. Just like most people want their agents to answer the phone, the agent needs you to answer the phone. Any delay in documentation or paperwork that's required by a lender, especially if you're a buyer, it delays the entire process. And so within the buying process, oftentimes we have things such as time of essence, which I think is something that I described or discussed in a previous episode. But when you violate the rules of time of essence, you put your agent in a very precarious position, especially if you're the buyer's agent, because they are not able to protect the asset that you put up, if you put up an asset, or fight, whether it's financial or otherwise. from being confiscated from the seller, if you have not held up your end of the agreement. And it's also very, very, very important that you listen to your real estate agent and do what they say. And if your real estate agent is telling you things that sound fishy, I want you to know that a step up from the real estate agent is the broker. Usually, it's not usual. No real estate agent in this country can work and have an active license unless they are under the supervision of a broker. So it could be a managing broker, a principal broker, just someone that's in charge of their education and development. And so if you feel like that your agent isn't doing some of the things that you need them to do, or maybe they don't understand what it is you're asking them about, then maybe you should reach out. Not maybe, you should. You should reach out to that agent's broker so that you can express your feelings about what's going on in the transaction with that broker, and give that broker the opportunity to rectify the situation for you. Our real estate commissions usually do not handle disputes about money, and neither does your local real estate board. So if it's a money transaction, where there's something that went awry and you're looking to recoup money, if you're not able to resolve it with the broker that was in charge of your agent, then the next step would be a civil litigation, or because those entities, even though they're real estate entities, they do not handle issues with compensation or payments of any kind, financial issues of any kind. And so with that being said, I hope that I've been able to shed some light for you today on the lawsuits that have been plaguing the National Association of Realtors this year. Like I said before, there is so much information out there on this topic. I urge you guys to go out there and take a look at it so that you can understand your rights and what is owed to you by the real estate professional before you take the plunge and sign off on an agreement to have someone represent you. After all, in the famous words of G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle. And so with that being said, I'd like to thank you guys so much for joining me. And until next week, take care of yourselves and have an awesome weekend. Bye now.